Welcome, everybody. This is two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff. And we are going to be doing what you might expect today, which is to take questions and share cool stuff. We just work that way. Already remembered the captions. He's good, or at least he has his moments. And we want to thank you for joining us. There are a number of different thank yous that are kind of worthy of tossing out at this point. All of you who are under much snow and ice and are like, I'm going to tear my eyes away from the skies and all of these things and enjoy a little EdTech fun. Thank you. We also want to thank the good folks at the Craft Center for Innovation at Foothill College in Los Altos Hills for all the good they do for folks teaching in the Bay Area and around the world. And then also a big thanks to this fine organization that has been around for a good, 13 years now? What do we got, Richard?
14 years. 14? freetechforteachers.com, something I started, 14 years ago as something to do, and keeps on going, pumping out blog posts every day, mostly, and sharing all kinds of interesting things that I find and showing people how to do cool stuff with technology.
I think there's, you look at something like sharing tons of blog posts and like anything else, it just gets easier to do ever more quickly as you practice it, right? Practice makes work in so many different realms.
Yeah, it does. Although sometimes you run out of ideas.
One of the reasons I love so much to share stories is because you never run out of stories, or at least available stories, that's for sure. You'll find lots of stories of learning at nextvista.org. My little nonprofit, which started in 2005, is mainly a library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content, my own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Ding. All right, so that's my whole thing there. We got videos about all kinds of stuff. Hope you'll give that a look. And we get a lot of our videos through contests. So you might say, oh, well, like we were all confused for months and months dealing with the switch to online learning, but we kind of got it going now. Good, let's get involved in some video contests. Have kids create stories that explain things. Maybe it's Captain Communicator explaining how to do an email. Maybe it's a couple of guys explaining how gravity works, right? I mean, just maybe it's it's a young woman who's put this really cool stop motion together so that you've got a sense of how the breathing system works. We have got a lot of cool videos created by teachers and students around the world, and we mainly get them through these Edu Video contests. 90 seconds or less, creatively explain something one might encounter in school. Now, there are some pretty strict rules related to sources and citations, but if you can deal with that, good fun. And just reach out if you have any questions about that. We have a service via video contest. The service via video contest is all built to celebrate the stories of those who help others. And we get some pretty awesome videos that way as well. We hope you will take an interest there. All right, everybody. Later today, we'll have the other webinar that Next Vista does on a regular basis. That is activities across grade levels. We're calling the theme this day, this theme today, tricking kids into learning. There's actually a number of different ways to think about the word trick in this, and so we'll explore those as we try to help teachers engage students in all kinds of new ways. And coming up in March, we'll have one that too will be on the next day that we do two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff. That'll be on astronomy. We've got the very interesting Andrew Vandenhoeven. Those of you in Michigan are like, wait, we know that guy. Yeah, we're gonna bring him in to talk to us about wildly cool ways to bring space into what you do. All right, how's this gonna work today? Well, we're gonna take questions and share cool stuff, pretty much. All right, so let's get us started. And if you would, Richard, go ahead and read off the first question that we had come in.
Well, so the first question that we have, so to be honest with everybody, kind of lost track of questions over the last month. So, so they may not appear in the best order, but anyway, the first question was from Meredith, and I'll talk about this one later, a little bit later. We'll talk more about it later. She says, thanks for the video about the QR code generator in Google Chrome. I do not have that in my version of Chrome, but my browser is up to date. Is there an extension? Well, actually, it's not. So what there is one little trick. So the latest version of Google Chrome, and I'll mention it again later, latest version of Google Chrome has a built-in QR code generator. You can either right click on the page that you're viewing and it will generate a QR code for it, or you can simply highlight the URL in your address bar and it will generate a QR code for that page as well. But the trick of it is you need to make sure you're signed into your Chrome account when you do that in Google Chrome. So it's not an extension. Thankfully, you don't have to use an extension for this anymore. Just click on it and you've got a QR code. So pretty darn cool thing. But yeah, you do have to sign into your Chrome account. Make sure you sign into your Chrome account. So that was question number one. Question number two came from Bruce. And he asks, I'm curious about your feelings about extensions. I have great concerns about the privacy and security and data that I give up with every extension. You seem to be free and casual about it. Do you ever have concerns? So, there's two parts to this I'd like to address. So first of all, the appearance that I'm free and casual about data privacy with extensions comes from the fact that I try so many of them and write blog posts about so many of them and make videos about so many of them that it seems like I probably have 100 of them installed at any given time, and I don't. I actually only have about a handful that are not official Google created extensions or add-ons that I have. It just kind of appears that way because I write so many blog posts about it and make so many videos about it. That said, whenever this question comes up about, using an add-on or using an extension with your Google account, the same is true for Microsoft. It doesn't have to be Google, it could be your Microsoft 365 account. Yeah, you want to make sure that you look at who's creating that extension or who's creating that service that you're going to use your account, your Google account, your Microsoft account to sign into, and make the best judgment for yourself. I see somebody will say, well, I'm never going to allow anything that allows access to my Google Drive. Well, if you do that, you're never going to be able to use a whole lot of Google add-ons, because some of the cool stuff you can do with add-ons, Google Slides, and Google Forms, and Google Docs, well, they have to have access to your Google Drive to store the things you've made. Right? So I do have some concerns about it. But I think if you're careful, one of the things I look at for Chrome extensions in particular is look at the last time it was updated. If it hasn't been updated in 6 months or hasn't been updated in a few versions of Chrome, then maybe you don't want to use it. Maybe the developer is kind of giving up on it, right? And there are those, right? I saw one the other day that hadn't been updated since 2017. Like, probably not going to use that one. Probably not going to try that one. So yeah, use your best judgment. And the reality is, like, there's a lot of dangers on the internet, right? I don't want to be a scare, I don't want to say the boogeyman's coming to get you, right? Or whatever, be scared, be scared. But, you look at some of the biggest data breaches out there are happening on, places like Target and, sites that have millions and millions of dollars in IT security. They still have data breaches. So what do you think, Rushton?
Well, I certainly think that there are very specific pieces of advice that people can figure out very quickly. So I think the idea that you check when it was last updated as an extension is a really good one. Another good move to make is to say, all right, is this an extension that I need, right? And that kind of works in two ways. One is just, what does it do? Well, it allows you to have, like a rhinoceros appear from time to time on the screen. Do you really need that, right? And the more kind of out there it is, the more suspicious I am that there's a potential issue. I'm always kind of looking for what their business model might be. I want to know that as well. Is it something where they say, okay, you do this because this gives you the opportunity to do these things, and our company makes money in this fashion. It's kind of good to know that. Nothing is certain with regard to how the different companies will choose to use data, because they do have access to it. And I would say keep it minimized for sure. But as you think about something like the QR code generator, right? The first order of business is to say, are QR codes the right thing for the learning that I want to do? And QR codes can be really, really cool. You can imagine spaces where kids are using them in order to gather info for specific purposes. They can be fantastic. But if you really just need to get kids to a link, would it be easier to just stick the link into Classroom or something else? Probably so. And so, just think about, okay, well, what am I really gaining by using any given technology? And I think that will end up addressing a number of the things that you might look at in terms of extensions as well. I would finally add this, that Richard talked about at one point about making sure you've got your Chrome browser updated. A lot of folks don't pay a lot of attention, even on Chromebooks, where there's a little arrow and things like that. You need to be like, update Chrome regularly. They're doing a lot to keep you secure in terms of the nastiness that is out there. So think along those lines. Let's go from nastiness to coolness.
Well, I'd also say uninstall anything you're not using. I recommend that all the time.
Yes.
If you try something and then you do an audit of all the stuff that's connected to your account. Google makes that really easy to do.
Yep.
You can go into your Chrome settings and look at all your extensions that you have and all your add-ons and all your apps. And if you see one like, oh gosh, I haven't used that in 6 months or a year, well, you can probably delete it. You don't need it. And if you do need it, you can reinstall it pretty darn easily too. So,
yep.
Just keep track of that sort of thing. All right.
What we got here?
So QR codes that Chrome makes will. So first of all, we got 2 of them here. We got 2 QR codes here because you can Rushton. In fact, I think if you do it right now, although that's not a public URL, so it probably won't work. Never mind. I'm going to say you can probably do it in your Chrome browser right now. They're Rushton on the screen, but I think that's not a public URL, so it probably isn't going to work. But anyway, any web page you're on in Chrome, if you click on the URL bar, highlight the URL, you'll get a little icon for a QR code. Likewise, if you right-click on it, you'll have a new option in your right-click menu for QR codes. It's not going to work with your private URL. But oh no, it does. There it is. It just showed up. Click on that, Rushton. It gives you a QR code. Boom. All right. Now, I'm using that for my Google form for sign-in, sign-out sheets in my classroom because it's impossible for anyone to go to the bathroom without a phone these days. So when my students leave, they scan the QR code and fill out the little form that says, I'm going to the bathroom at XYZ time. And then they have to scan it when they come back and fill out the form to say, I've come back from the bathroom. We do that for contact tracing at our school. So for the first time ever, I'm doing sign-in, sign-out sheets in my classroom. I've always been pretty willy-nilly about it. Like, oh, go to the bathroom. Don't get lost. Come back. Right? If you're gone for half an hour, missing out the search party. Right? Can't get away with that anymore. You got to keep track of who's touched which doorknobs when. So I've got that. Now, the other QR code that you see on the page, it goes to the other cool share that I have this week, which is the MIT App Inventor and an app that I made with my students, and my students are making these too, of various fun quizzes. Mine is a cat quiz. Are you a cat person, a dog person, or neither? Now, the MIT App Inventor lets you make a, oh, good. Someone just tried out the QR code. the MIT App Inventor lets you make Android apps that will actually run on your Android phone and actually install them as apps on your phone, as opposed to some of the other services out there that say, oh, you can make an app from a Google spreadsheet. No, you didn't make an app. What you made was a mobile-friendly website. The MIT App Inventor lets you make a true Android app that you can actually install on your phone and use. And you can do all kinds of cool things with it, like location. You can include location information. You can include all kinds of sound effects. Basically, if you can dream it up, you can do it with the MIT App Inventor once you've figured out the logic. And a big part of this, and I wrote a long blog post about this last year. And by last year, I mean, like actually last school year, not 2020, last school year. A big part of this is before the students start messing about with what the little, user interface functions are and the logic functions, it's actually planning out with wireframes, or you can do it with Google Slides. You can do it on paper if you want to. I've done it literally on paper. What do you want to have happen in the app, and so that students don't end up, for example, just this little app on the screen. We've got, well, what do you want to happen when someone clicks cat person? What do you want to happen when you click dog person? What should happen if you say, pick one for me? And what's the recourse if someone accidentally clicks on the wrong thing? How do they get back to the beginning to restart? Can they go from dog to cat at any point? Can they go from dog to cat to pick one? What if we wanted to put in a dog, cat, or snake, right? Then how do we get to those? Right? So a lot of it, before you even get into the nuts and bolts of using MIT App Inventor, is planning and thinking about the logic of it. Once you get the logic planned out, then the MIT App Inventor is really great for making your own Android app, and it's free. And if your students don't have an Android phone, there's an emulator. There's an online emulator that you can use so that your students can still see their app work. In my case, I've got a bunch of old Android phones just in my classroom that don't have mobile data, but they're connected to the Wi-Fi, so they can still test them out that way. So, yeah.
Speaking
that's
of
my not so quick share.
Your moderately quick share. So I think speaking of apps, our next question has to do with apps like for Office 365 or like Tech 365 as opposed to 365. And that's coming from Sean, right? I'm working with PowerPoint a lot with my kids at home. Can you, Richard, do tech tips for Office 365 apps?
Yeah, I can. And I do make some videos and some tutorials about Office 365. I don't do a lot of it in part because I've always worked in schools that use G Suite for Education, or now Google Workspaces for Education Fundamentals. How's that for a mouthful? In case you missed the memo, Google now has 4 versions of Google Workspaces for Education. Anyway, so yes, I could, but if you really want to know about Office 365, there's a better person than me for Office 365. That's my long-winded way of saying that. And the gentleman's name is Mike Tolson. He is the product manager for Microsoft EDU, and he has oodles of to the point tutorials on all things Office 365 that you could ever want to know as a teacher, and tons of other interesting things that will help your students too. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So I believe the next question, I nothing really to add on that front for me, but the next question is about trying to embed a clip of a video into a Canvas course. Everything I have researched has not worked. I'm going to follow Richard's lead and point in another direction, which is towards a really exceptional guy named Steve McGriff. He runs an outfit called Divergent Ed, right? And you can find him at stephenmcgriff.com right there in the chat. But he's one of those people that kind of knows higher ed really well, has done a lot of work with K-12 educators. He has done trainings on Canvas, and he's one of those people that you can reach out to and just see, hey, like, do you have any info that you've posted about this or this or this? And he may know. And I say that knowing that there is a percentage chance that he does know, which is much higher than the percentage chance that I know with regard to Canvas, because that is not my bag. So I will leave that. Anything to add?
I will say that,
yeah.
So with Canvas, or really with any YouTube video you want to share, when you hit the little share button below the video you found, and you generate the URL for it, you can specify to start at a specific time. Okay. So if you're watching the recording of this video right now, you could start it at 7. You can have it automatically start 7 minutes in. You can also do the same thing when you get that share link. You can get the embed code, and you can specify a specific start time. Just click the little box that says start at XYZ time. Then embed that into Canvas, and it will start playing immediately at the section you want it to. Now, it won't let you cut the end of it. Right? So if you want to cut the video, it's not going to do that for you, but it will let you specify a specific start time. Other thing you could do, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the video that you're embedding into Canvas, you might consider putting it into a tool like Edpuzzle, where you can then add in your questions that you're going to ask anyway, and then embed that into Canvas. So there's a few options there.
Excellent.
But really, YouTube has a great built-in little piece for it.
So speaking of YouTube, I will not play this because we have learned in past episodes not to play YouTube videos while we do this, and that leads to being flagged in ways that are less than ideal. But before we started the recording, we were talking with some of the attendees about a mailing that I had put out that included this wonderful animated Oscar-winning animated video called Umbrella, which I highly recommend and will put in my March newsletter, along with this one. Hair Love is the name of the video, and it's just one of those stories that it's just right? Like not a long story, but captures a particular moment in a particularly touching way, and it's about this girl and trying to get hair just right, and she's with her father, and her father for the first time is trying to help her make that happen. It's a beautiful video, right? It's a beautiful story about a father and daughter, and it's one of those things that you'll want to share with family for sure. Like any story that gets you past some of the walls that we put up, right? Something that really kind of appeals to us emotionally might well get us into a more creative space for how we discuss things that might be important to us in any number of ways. We are paying a lot of attention to SEL issues with our students who are learning at a distance at the moment, and being able to use stories as a way of talking about connections and loss and a number of different things can be really, really helpful for helping them get past difficult moments. So every month in the newsletter, we put a lot of different videos out there for you, but I got 2 exceptional animated pieces, followed by a third that's really good, a TED Ed one that's going to be lined up for it as well. But that is my quick share for our episode today, and let's just keep going. I believe we've got a couple more questions, don't we, Richard?
We've got a couple more questions. One of them came from a colleague of mine who was asking a question about using the whiteboard in Zoom. So I'm wondering if you've encountered this problem before. Today I shared my screen. The whiteboard was shared my screen, and the whiteboard was I was going to have students create a design where they all were part of it, and then I was going to have them. Then I was going to make a T-shirt for each of them. Right? In the past, I've been on a whiteboard and had a student doodle, but never did anything with it. Anyway, long story short, what was happening is she was trying to get all the students to use the annotations in Zoom at the same time. Trying to use the whiteboard in Zoom and have all the students doing it, working on it simultaneously. It's not really designed for that, which is where she was running into problems, because Zoom's annotations is really designed more for one person to do some annotation or drawing and everybody else watching it. And you can pass it back and forth, but having them do it simultaneously doesn't really work. So my solution is to use something like Google's Jamboard or Whiteboard Chat, or even just Google Drawings, or even just a Google slide, or even a PowerPoint slide. You can use the online version of PowerPoint and have students collaborate on that. And if you want everybody to see what's happening, you as a teacher screen share what's happening on that particular tool. So for example, I'll open up Google Jamboard, share that Jamboard with all my students. They can all draw on it simultaneously. If I want everyone to see what's happening, they can do it there. They can see it there on Jamboard, or I could screen share it, and the student who's sitting back and just watching for some reason instead of participating would still be able to watch what was happening. So the Zoom annotations isn't really designed for having 15 kids all trying to draw at the same time. It's not going to work.
Richard, I'd add that I'm a big fan of using a moment like that to ask, troubleshooting questions, right? So if you're trying to do something like this with your students and it's not working like you think, to really turn to the students and say, all right, this isn't working like I had imagined. What are the questions that I should be asking to figure this out? And to see if they can get into it. You might be able to get them to say, well, you're kind of thinking about this like you think about Google Slides or Jamboard, where lots of people can be on at once, and maybe this tool doesn't do that. It is a common issue in all sorts of spaces to bring our preconceptions about the way something should work into some new space or some new tool or technique, and it doesn't. And now we're like, wait, why not? And that is a moment to use and figure out who in your class might be wielding some really exceptional skills in the troubleshooting department. So I would toss that as an addition in there.
One more question. Actually, there's two questions. Sorry, Rushton. There's two more questions. One came from somebody in the chat earlier. What's Unsplash?
Ooh, Unsplash. Oh my goodness. Let us take a look at the wonder and love that is Unsplash. Unsplash is a tool for finding images that you might use in slides. I don't use this more often than about multiple times a day. But you look for whatever it is that you are looking for, and they then will call up all these images. The thing about Unsplash is that the images tend to be very high quality. So you are looking at images that are really, really strong. And you think, well, why are such high quality images on a site where you can get these legally for free, even without citing your source, which you can do legally, but don't. You should always be modeling citing your source. Nevertheless, why would this be the case? And the answer is because they built a different model around sharing high quality images, and they connect with a bunch of other companies about how they do it as well, and they're doing just fine. So you don't need to worry about treating them poorly. And I have found that one of the best things about Unsplash is that I can find some really, really good visual prompts for getting good discussions going in class, for getting them to start looking for things that maybe they haven't looked at before, for creating connections. But I am a major fan of Unsplash. There are some other tools like Unsplash that are out there. Unsplash was the one that really kind of launched it, but Pexels and Pixabay are also good ones as well. So I will get Unsplash's link there and just mention Pexels and Pixabay in the chat too. There you go.
All right, so our last question came from Cheryl, who says, I'm a second grade teacher and I'd like to know how to create and teach my students how to create MP3 files to record their fluency stories. I recall before the pandemic, you sent me an easy way to capture students' voices. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could assist me with this matter again. So there's a few tools that I like for this. The simplest one, and I've been using it for more than a decade, is Vocaroo, VOCAROO.com, Vocaroo.com. I'll put it in the chat. Been using it for more than a decade. I first started using it to record sub-plan when I was going to be out. That's how I started using it, because I would embed the recording right into my class blog, and my sub-plan would be, listen to this recording. And they'd hear me say, yes, you have to turn in your work to the sub, and everything else. So yeah, so Vocaroo is an easy one. Downside to Vocaroo, there's not any editing capability. It's either you record it and you like it, or you record it and you don't like it and you try again. So you've got that option. Online voice recorder, online-voice-recorder from a company called 123 Apps is good. And Twisted Wave, which I believe, Rushton, do you have a page about that on Next Vista for Learning somewhere?
We may indeed. I'll tell you what we do have, and there was an activities across grade levels thing a few months back, actually quite a bit back at this point as we look at it, because right. So what it is it's called the Power of Voice, and we were talking about how you can use different kinds of voice related tools. We talk about SpeakPipe quite a bit as well, and what you can do with your learning, with kids from K2, with kids from 3rd to 5th grade, kids in middle school, kids from high school, and you are welcome to watch that as you go as well. By the way, I also want to circle back to something I had intended to say and then forgot to, and Raina tossed it in. Huge kudos to her. That some of the sites where, like Unsplash, Pixabay, and Pexels, but especially Pixabay, a lot of those images, not necessarily, for young audiences, right? And so there's a lot of content that it's more mature. It's not, it's not pornography or something like that, but it's just stuff you don't want to bring up in your classroom and not be prepared to have a rather involved discussion with. So I recommend using those sites for the content that you put together. And if you're going to use them with your students, make sure you have good conversations with them about what to do if they run across something that they think might be objectionable. All righty. With that, I think we are actually kind of well into the time frame right now. And so let's wind things down. Our next episode is in 2 weeks. That's March the 4th. We hope you will join us for that. We hope you are hanging in there with the ice that's blanketing much of the United States right now, and wherever you are, that you are doing okay, you're staying warm, you have power, and all such things. Those of you in Texas, boil your water apparently, because damage to pipes has meant that that's a good move. And then also, if you are interested in possibly winning a latte or something similar, feel free to go to my February newsletter. I'll get that link in the chat in just a moment, and follow the Super Sips area of the monthly newspaper, where you can enter to win. And your odds are pretty good, because we don't get tons of people entering. I think a lot of people are like, oh, this gets sent out to thousands of people, I'll never win. And so many people think that the numbers are good. Enter. All right, so I told you about my little nonprofit, nextvista.org. I hope you'll give it a look. I've got a blog at rushtonh, rushtonh.com, and would love to get your thoughts on the different things that I share there. Written some books that you're welcome to take a look at, and if you work with your colleagues on ideas with those books, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to connect and talk with you a little bit about it. Tell us about this one, Richard.
So that is my Practical EdTech Handbook. If you sign up for my weekly newsletter, which comes out on Sunday night or Monday morning, depending upon your time zone, and the attitudes of my toddlers. Uh, you can get a copy of that sent right to your inbox. It's 65-ish pages of my favorite EdTech tools, tips, strategies, and and not just the nuts and bolts, but ideas for using a lot of these tools in your classroom. And it's free. You can take it for what it's worth. On the next page, on the next slide, there's my YouTube channel, which has 33,960 some subscribers. And I have more than 1,000 tutorials now. I just looked the other day, more than 1,000 tutorials on all manner of things, from Google Earth to how to make a green screen video to how to make a QR code and everything in between. So check that out, my YouTube channel. You can always send me questions, richard@burn.media. You can follow me on Twitter, @rmburn. I've got a Facebook page. You can follow me on Instagram, or you can even follow me on Strava. If you'd like to join me on Strava, you're more than welcome to as well. Just search for my name and you'll find me. I'm the Richard Byrne that looks like me. There's the link to it.
Feel free to get those links in the chat for sure.
And I should point out, for anyone who doesn't know this, I am not a children's author. In the last 2 weeks, I have had a half dozen requests to Skype with elementary school classes about books that I've written. I have not written any children's books. There's a gentleman in the UK, I believe, who has written some very popular children's books. It's not me, but I'm happy to Skype with your class and talk about other things.
So awesome. I was doing a thing with a school in St. Louis, Missouri, actually, just in the last few weeks, where talking to the kids and talk to them about cool service. What do you do to tell the stories of how you learn to help others, and that stuff is just fun. So if you're ever kind of like, I need to find somebody to talk to my kids, just reach out to people. They're likely to say yes. I mean, they are. It's easy to do and only takes so much time, because that's the way, say, Zoom and Meet and all of these things work. So with that, I'll finish things up for the recording. We'll stick around for a few minutes and be happy to answer questions if you have them. The folks have started tossing in the thanks, including Dave, who's going to be presenting a very cool piece at the McCall conference coming up. So if you have not taken in the Michigan ISTE affiliate conference, whoo, man, it's a good one. So feel free to take a look there. We thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope we will see you again in 2 weeks. Take care.